My name is Steve Goodgame, K5HEA. I am the Education and Learning Manager at ARRL. Today we're going to talk about youth outreach, but a little bit differently. If you've heard one of my sermons on the Mount before, we typically talk about how to interest youth in stuff. Today's going to be focused on not only that, but more how to actually make progress in getting into schools. I've spent a lot of time in schools. I taught for 21 years before taking this job, and over the last few years, the league has made significant progress in actually getting into school systems. We're in the process of building a full STEM curriculum to roll out into schools, and we'll show you some of that here. So I'm also a firm believer that I'm not a preacher, so if you have questions, I would much rather you ask them when you have them. So, raise your hand, throw something at me, get my attention. I'd like this to be much more of a conversation than a sermon. So, as those come up, let me know. We do have a couple of Utes in the room. I do want to do a quick shout out. Bree and Nick, if you go by the ARRL booth, there's an amazing escape room set up for the kids in our youth lounge, and these two built that and brought it out to us, so thank you guys. And I'm sorry, but anybody that, is older than 21-ish doesn't get to try the escape room. But, if you find a Ute, bring them by. So, let's skip that for now. So, radio in schools. So, this one's a question. So, like I said, I like to do things with more of a conversational sort of thing. So, radio in school. Hams keep trying to get into schools, but lately, especially it seems, we're good. Lately, it seems we've had limited success. Why do you think that is? You can talk among yourselves and throw things at me and let me know, but I'm curious. Why do you think that is? Security, okay. What else? Time? Time on whose side? Teachers' side? Okay. So, teachers do want to go home eventually, regardless of what the picture books say, that we don't live in school. But it's really a lot more than that. You are right in that security is a big part of that. But there's a lot more to it than just time. We are actually getting into schools. All of these pictures are from schools that we've made it into in the last couple of years that have great programs. I brought a teacher with me that is teaching on Staten Island at a high school in Staten Island, New York. He's in the booth right now. He's got a great haircut, looks remarkably like mine. Of course, everybody in my booth, other than my wife, has a great haircut that looks remarkably like mine. So swing by there. I would love you to talk to him to see. People listen to me all the time. If you can hear it from somebody who's doing it and doing it well, that kind of carries a little bit more. He has had over 100 kids licensed in the last 2 years. So he's doing things and he's doing them well. But yeah, we are actually making it into schools. So these are kids in Erie, Pennsylvania. I've got a great video to show you from there. It's 10 degrees outside in that picture. It's 10 degrees. These kids it's a Saturday also, by the way. And these kids are on the roof of their high school in snow. They had to move the snow out of the way to put the antenna up. I would say they're kind of bought in. Obviously a balloon launch. These are some of these kids in Staten Island, New York, out, working with foxes and having a fox hunt. You want to have a fun fox hunt, do it in the middle of New York City. So, and that's what they're doing. So, he's making it work there. But one of the biggest challenges we have to getting in schools are standards. So, anybody in here a teacher? Okay, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. Teachers have to do these weird things called lesson plans. And they have to tie them to whatever standard it is that the school uses, state standards, national or Common Core standards, whatever they are. If when you sit down to talk with school leaders and stuff, you can't tie it to standards that are actually going to impact their test scores, you've already lost. You have to tie it to standards, and that's exactly what we're doing with this STEM program that we're building. I know it's hard to see, but this is kind of like a rough model of what this program is going to be, and the different color areas are different standards and different subject areas that these lessons touch. It is no longer good enough to go out to a school and say, we need to teach ham radio because they learn math. Okay, what math? I need specifics because, a kid in 8th grade isn't responsible for quote unquote learning math. Instead, they have to do things like the student will perform operation, and it gives you these nice long standards, and they are tested exactly like those standards are written. So every lesson that we design has to be targeted towards a standard or multiple standards, because that teacher is going to have to take that lesson plan, hang it on the door outside, so when the principal walks in to try to play walks by to observe what's happening, they can look and say, okay, when I walk in this room, this is what I should be seeing these kids learn. See, and I see some people nodding, amen, hallelujah, because if you've ever taught in a school, you're used to this. But those of us who haven't, you're like, seriously? Yeah, seriously, schools are that way. Okay, so all of our lesson plans and everything that we're doing is tied to standards. Now, we're correlating them to Common Core state standards, which realistically, that's like 90-something% of the country. They might call it something different, but they really just hit Control-C, copy, Control-V, paste, and they called it, Mississippi College and Career Readiness Standards. They're the same thing. So as we build this out, we're actually going to start correlating them to each state with like a little cross-reference chart, so that, because the numbers might shift a little bit, but we want to make it as easy as possible for teachers to do this, because teachers don't have enough, what was that word you said? Time. So I know a lot of us are sitting in here, what do you mean? Teachers get off like 3 months a year. No, I don't know what you're listening to, but that's not the case. I did it for 21 years. I did get Christmas off. There's no lie there. I didn't do much of any work during Christmas time. But during the summer, we were going to professional development. We were, putting the classroom back together for the next year. There's not as much time off. Now, we didn't get paid for that time. People are like, you get paid for a year. No, I got paid for 187 days. Okay, but we need to save as much time and effort for them as we can. So we correlate it to standards. Each one of these units is one of the different units that we're working on building. It's everything from fox hunting to electronics and stuff like that. So as we roll that out, keep your eyes on the website. And we'll get that out to you. Also, if you are not currently registered as an ARRL instructor or an ARRL teacher, do that, because we're going to start sending out a newsletter, and that'll have all this stuff in there for you. So you can shoot me an email or give me a call, and we'll get you set up on that. Question?
Quick question. Do you have a similar kind of chart at college level?
I do not. However, if you were volunteering to help make one, I will sing that hero song. See, Ron's here. We have a lot of people that are working in that college and sort of university level, and we're trying to expand into those areas as well. And I'll talk about our Teachers Institute in a little bit. But yeah, that's a whole different beast, because each class has got different goals. But yeah, I'm more than happy to let you do that for us. I already said they have to be standards-based lessons, and at the end of the day, it's all about moving a needle. So, we have to be able to show that it actually made a difference. Otherwise, what's the point? So, I drink a lot of coffee, and the first 5 or 6 cups actually make no difference. Okay? My needle doesn't start moving until I hit about 800 milligrams of caffeine for the morning. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I think I can. So you've got to be able to move the needle. So how do schools measure whether it moves the needle? Tests. Okay, yeah, those wonderful standardized tests. Anybody remember standardized tests? Or maybe you have kids that took a standardized test, and they try to break down a complicated project-based thing and they put it into a multiple choice question. And by the end of the day, your kid's like, I don't know, C, because C will see me through the test. And that's, okay, we have to be able to show at the end of the day not that all of this time and effort that they did doing all of this kind of nerdy, cool stuff actually made a difference. That's what it's all about. Now, once we have history showing, look, like I brought Everton, the other bald guy, or one of the other bald guys in our booth, because his needle's moving. Okay, so we have to start waving around success. So schools are incredibly competitive, especially private schools. But schools are incredibly competitive. So if you have success at, Brainerd Middle School, tell everybody. Because the other school across town's like, well, wait a minute, that's not fair. I want that. And then they're going to start looking to see how to do it. And guess who's already out there to help them? Okay. So the right stuff to make this happen is teachers. Absolutely nothing against all of the hams in the world. I appreciate you. I love you guys who like to go to schools and talk to people. Okay. But at the end of the day, the only way we are getting into a school is with a teacher. Okay, the days of you going in and sitting in a closet with Bobby to play radio are gone. Okay, so we have to have a teacher or some staff member at school that the school is willing to say, yes, he is going to run this club or she is going to run this club and do this, and that's the person we need to hook into. Once we get that person, then the club gets kind of a role where they can start supporting that. Okay, but we have to start with somebody on staff. Every now and then, especially like out in the country, things get a little different where they're like, oh yeah, we'd love to have you, but 99% of the schools will not let you through the door without a staff member. Okay, this is one of our teachers' institutes right here. So when I took over this position, I guess about almost 3 years ago, we were holding 2.5-ish of these a year. We had trouble filling them. We're up to running 7 of them this year. And honestly, we're going to tell about 50 teachers no this year. Because I have more people applying now that want to come. We're gaining that momentum than I have seats to be able, and money, to be able to make it happen. This is where we hold it. It's in a conference room. I can comfortably fit 12. There are 20 in that picture because I have a hard time saying no. Okay? But that's what we need to do. Teachers get to come to HQ. So if you have a teacher, in fact, I know somebody in the room, not a teacher yet, right? About to be, if I remember right. So who needs to go ahead and sign up for Teachers Institute? Anybody want to guess what it costs? Technically, it costs $100 because we have to have a little skin in the game to make sure you actually get on the airplane. Okay? Everything else is paid for by donors. Everything else is paid for by donors. In fact, I'll go ahead and tell you, if you walk around and you see, it's apparently, I don't know this because I can't really tell the difference, but there's a different red badge that says Maxim Society on it. If you see those people, tell them thank you because those people are the ones that are giving me the money to bring teachers in for free. Okay, I spend about $3,800 per teacher to bring them over. We keep them for a week. We train them for a week. And we give them equipment to take back to use with their kids. Okay? Ron, you've been through TI. Here's one back there. Everybody wave. Say, hi, I'm Ron. Questions about Teachers Institute? Ron's here. Everton's been through it in my booth. I kid you not. Like I said, I taught 21 years. This is the best staff development I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not saying that just because I'm running it. I'm serious. I actually was slated to come to Teachers Institute when I was still teaching school, and then that wonderful Rona hit, and I didn't, and instead I just took it over instead. So this is just a picture outside of one of the hotels. If you don't think the teachers are getting interested in it, that's about 7 o'clock. It's like they think this is hot in Connecticut. It was like 80 degrees. They're outside in the parking lot because there's a good pass. They skipped dinner because there was a good satellite pass, and they wanted to go out in the parking lot and work the satellite. So, they're getting interested in this stuff. This is what makes the difference. Also, I'll take this minute. I don't have any, it's not a slide in here, but I want to go ahead and say yes.
So do teachers get anything out of it as far as measurables, as far as just give them a continuing ed credit or something else that the school can say, oh, you're getting one of these credentials, great.
Yeah, so most school districts will take basically like a certificate that says you had a certain number of seat hours. If not, we actually have an arrangement with Fresno Pacific University that they can, I forget the exact dollar amount, it's not much, it's like $120 or something like that, to get 2 graduate level hours. So that counts for that professional development CEU credit that teachers need a lot of times. So yes, that's a good question. So we do that. But like I said, most teachers, the certificate's enough. They send it into the state and they say, oh, you spent 40 hours in class. That it only gives you 40 hours regardless of the extra time that you're playing later, because that's just your time. Quickly though, we have partnerships with a lot of the manufacturers out here. So as you're walking around, people like Yaesu. Yaesu is giving us the FT70 radio for cheap enough. I'm not allowed to tell you how cheap it is, because they know I'm just giving it to a teacher. So Zoom Spot's the same thing. We're giving Zoom Spots to teachers starting this year. So every teacher who comes through is getting a Zoom Spot. Everybody know what a Zoom Spot is? A little hotspot? So what we're doing with that is they're getting an FT70 radio, right? It has a digital mode. There's not a whole bunch of digital repeater. I mean, there's some. So I'm giving them a Zoom Spot. And the idea here is what we're going to do is if every teacher has a digital radio and every teacher has a Zoom Spot, we're creating a Yaesu Fusion room, not a Wires X room because you have to do that differently, that's going to connect all of these schools across the country so that when a kid in a classroom in California wants to talk to another kid, he can pick up a handheld radio, key it up, and he is talking to however many kids are listening on that Yaesu Fusion room. Maybe it's a kid in Connecticut, maybe it's a kid in Florida, who knows? But they're all classrooms of teachers that have come through Teachers Institute. So people like that. So as you're walking around, thank people like Yaesu. They're working with, even Quansheng, everybody's seen those little Quansheng radios? They're giving me those Quansheng radios and a programming cable for $14. Now, I know a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's a dirty radio. I chose that radio because it's quote unquote hackable, and kids are into, computers and everything. You can actually upload your own firmware and stuff to it and customize it. That's why that radio is there. Not to mention, most kids, that's about what their budget is. So the teacher might as well know how to use those radios too. So where do I find teachers? I go to teachers conferences to find them. I spent more time on the road this year. In fact, I was looking at my Marriott account the other day, and it looks like I've already got 67 days. And I was like, holy cow. I'm like, this is too many days. So we go to teachers conferences. I talk to whoever I'll talk to. I'll preach at whoever I can. This is a picture of me in Connecticut. They called me and said, hey, we got a bunch of technology education teachers coming. I'll go talk to them. I got 2 teachers coming to TI out of that. So if you know teachers or you have teachers conferences that you know about, as this program scales, I'm going to need volunteers that are willing to go to a teacher conference. Yes, sir. So he said when he taught electronics, so they got an extra graduation credit if they learned Morse code, CW. So that's a good way. I did it in my classroom where kids that got their license, their grade turned into a 100 at that point. I was teaching a STEM. It was we had to label it. I forget what we technically labeled it. We had to find a course that didn't have a curriculum, so I wasn't breaking any laws. And we found one that had no state curriculum but still had a designation, so we're like, that's my class. And it was called Introduction to Computer Information Systems or so, I don't know. Yes, sir. I can. So the way TI works is if they come to Teachers Institute, we connect them to their division director, their vice director, and their section manager. Now, I can't say that all of those people email that teacher, but I can say that I give each one of those people every teacher's contact information. Some of those people are better than others as far as following through with it. But that's kind of how I have to do that because I meet, well, a good example is this coming next February, I'm going to a conference that's going to have 22,000 teachers or so in it. My ability to track 22,000 different clubs is I drink a lot of coffee, but I'm not sure I can stay up that many hours. So I try to do that through our field organization. So, in fact, if you go by the ARRL booth complex, we have a booth about volunteering in the field organization. If you really want to help, go talk to those people because I bank heavily on our field organization to make those connections. You know, when a teacher comes through, they get that, hoping that it gets to a club, that the club reaches out to that teacher and says, hey, I heard you're coming through Teachers Institute. Our club's only 8 miles up the street. We'd love to have you. Anything you need to do, you need us to do to help, we're more than happy to do it. And then what I'm going to ask you as club members is when they call and they have stupid questions in your mind, remember there are no real stupid questions. Okay, they're asking because they're interested. The minute that you kind of look down on them, they're no longer interested. And we've lost those people. And I know that from experience because I had a kid who, when he got his license, I took him out the back door of the school because that was our thing. We gave him all a very expensive Baofeng. And we took him outside, and they made their first contact. He made the mistake of saying 10-4 on the repeater. The kid was 12 years old. He thought it sounded cool, okay? Nobody else batted an eye at it except for, you know, the old preacher guy who proceeded to berate him. His radio never came back to school. He was done. So just be mindful of that. I mean, when people reach out to you, it may seem extremely simple and self-evident to you, but they're asking for a reason. So, you know, kind of feed them and welcome them into the club. I don't have that picture in this slide, but I have a picture that I show sometimes when I took some of my kids. I called them my Padawans. I took some of my kids to the local club, and it felt like, you know, going to grandma's house at Thanksgiving. You had the kiddie table. They made the kids sit on the other side of the room. How many of those kids came back? 2. One because he was just kind of nerding out with me, and the other one because his grandpa was there. The rest of them, no, I'm good. Thanks. I'll hang it on Discord. Okay, so where have we reached? Everybody has seen these things. These are like these little QSO maps. I recently hired a guy named Marvin in our department, and he had this great idea. I was plotting all of this information on where teachers are coming from, and he's like, why don't we just make a fake ADIF file and make a QSO map? I was like, drop. I was like, what a great idea. So this is that. It's actually not all the way done yet because we've had that many people come through, but I kind of had to get on an airplane. So these are all of the teachers from the last 2 years. I have these on our table over there if you want to take a look at it. But when you're talking to other hams, they can read this in about a second. I can give you a chart and you're like, no. But I give you a QSO map, people are like, holy cow, you worked Alaska? Yeah. Now, if you run into anybody from Hawaii, feel free to shame them. Okay, but we're getting there. We've got most of the states. Like I said, this isn't all the way done. There's about 4 or 5 states on here that we haven't plotted out yet, but we're getting there. So that's 2 years. Every year, next year I'm hoping to run 10 of these. You know, so the number just grows. So what is STEM? STEM is kind of that area that we have to fit things into. STEM, when you look at schools, is kind of like everybody's blazing their own trail and making it up as they go, which means it's perfect for us right now. Okay? They don't know what they're doing. Anybody who tells you they know what they're doing, okay, and I'm trying to think of how to say this nicely. There are people who think that STEM is like sewing a little patch and saying, look, I did STEM because it's a mission patch. If you're not following that up with something, I saw that, okay? If you're not following that up with something that's actually like difficult and project-based, and they actually do something, I don't know, STEMmy, not sure how STEMish it is. I'm throwing some suffixes on STEM for you. So this is Everton. This is my other bald guy. When you go over and see him, these are his kids in, all of these are his, in New York City. So this is, I know it's small, but this is a Baofeng. Anybody ever seen a purple one of those? The girl wanted a purple radio. And so she said, can I just paint it purple? And he said, sure, but you have to like completely take it apart to paint. I mean, he made her paint it correctly, not like, you know, kind of sketchy. So they learned how to completely take it apart, unsolder the speaker and everything, to be able to paint the frame of it and then put it back together, and it still actually works. To some of us, we're like, yeah, that's not that big of a deal. But to a kid who's never soldered a thing in her life, that was pretty epic. And it started a thing. Now all of a sudden, we've got kids who painted it pink and put rhinestones on it. I mean, and now it's in New York City, so it fits. But I'm serious. There's like Baofangs like of every color you can imagine wandering. Remember, this guy got 100 kids licensed. And so there's Baofangs of every color walking around New York City, riding the train. People going, what in the world is that? That's okay. If that's what your kid wants to do, let them have it. This is them doing their fox hunt stuff. They've got a great station in the classroom. They're fighting the problem of it's in a basement. So, you know, we went out there and tested some of his kids, and we found a way to kind of snake coax up through some piping and get it close to the top. I already mentioned this, but get the word out. And I think she just walked out. Sierra just walked out. So Sierra just walked out, but Sierra is our public relations person. Alex is our social media guy. Get the word out about what you're doing. Because remember, I said schools are what? Competitive. Okay? So find that person that can get you on the news, get you in the paper, because that's how those other schools are going to see it and be like, I want to do that. Okay? And that's what this is. So this is one of the other bald guys in our booth. His name's Wayne. He teaches these classes for me. And this is from a couple of years ago when we had a group of teachers up there and we had ARRL, the amateur radio on the International Space Station. We created a special SSTV image, and then they sent it through the FM voice repeater on the space station so that our teachers could receive it. That was pretty stinking cool. You know, I mean, teachers are sitting there like, oh, I want to learn how to do this, and then they're getting something. They just thought they were downloading like a regular, not that there's anything really regular about ARRL. I mean, you're talking to somebody in space. It's pretty cool. Anyway, but when they downloaded it and it said, you know, ARRL Teachers Institute, they're like, oh my gosh, because it was intended just for them. Invite senators. This is one of our Connecticut state senators, came out to visit our Teachers Institute. How else do you expect people at the state level to know what we can do for them if you don't ask them to come see you? Okay. This is Harry Smith. Anybody watch the Today Show? Harry Smith is on the Today Show. He came out. This is one of our schools in Erie, Pennsylvania. Guy graduated from Teachers Institute a couple years ago. He went back immediately. In fact, earlier, there's Sierra, by the way. He's our public relations person. Any questions about how to get what you're doing out to the news media? That's your person. So, sorry, lost it when she came back in. Oh, so he immediately launched a balloon. You saw the picture of a bunch of kids holding the balloon up with the gloves? Those were his kids. Went back. They're like, that was pretty cool. Now let's do something else. So they got an ARRL contact. ARRL contacts happen all the time. Not to diminish the value of an ARRL contact, because remember, they're in space, and that's pretty stinking epic. But what makes this guy extra more epic, or to be grammatically as incorrect as I can be, is the kids did every step of this process. The kids, we worked with myself and Joe Karsha out at W1AW. We worked with this guy and his teachers for 2 years to build this station. He's got an amazing station now. Okay, everything from how do I make the antennas not fall over on the roof because I can't drill into the roof. Okay, the kids did it all. They ran the cable, they assembled everything. And who's ever seen an ARRL contact? Anybody ever watched one on YouTube or something? Who is typically operating the radios? Those of us who are, let's be polite, longer in the tooth. Okay, this one, the kids did every station. The kids were your main, your primary, the kids were your backup, and they really made me nervous because about 45 minutes before everything was supposed to kick off, one of the kids looked at his phone and said, holy cow, there's a satellite pass coming. Let's do it. And I went, let's not. And they're like, too late. They worked the satellite, changed everything on the radio, worked the bird, then changed it back. I was like, that's how you know these kids know what they're doing. Because it's not a simple thing. I mean, it's like, for us, it seems simple-ish. But they had no fear. They're like, yeah, let's just do it. I was like, Drew, you good with this? He goes, yeah, they're good. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's your face on the news, brother. And so that's what happened. So I actually have a video later to show some of that. But this is what success looks like. These are some of the kids at Everton, the Staten Island, New York guy. I took a train down to test 30-something of their kids. Plus it was a good excuse to eat. Apparently in New York City, a bacon, egg, and cheese, salt, pepper, and ketchup bagel is a thing. I don't know. Anyway, it was a long trip to eat a bagel, but we tested 30-something kids. Okay. This is Drew, the guy in Erie, Pennsylvania. Every one of the kids that operated and asked those astronauts those questions was a licensed ham. Typically, that's not the case. Typically, you got, us older guys get ladies up at the front. The kid walks up, and, they use a school call sign, obviously, but they could walk up and they go, my question is, how hard is it to go to the bathroom on the space station? And they move on. But in this case, every single kid that talked was a licensed ham. So this is a little video clip. We're going to hope the sound works.
This morning, Mr. Smith here is taking us to a high school in Pennsylvania where a very special radio call, years in the making, drew as much attention as a big game there. Hi, Harry.
We didn't really know what we were walking into. It felt kind of like some state high school championship was going on. And oh, my goodness, for the kids who were involved, they got it. The sky was the limit.
In a town near Erie, Pennsylvania,
NA1SS, this is KC3SGV.
a group of students are trying to contact someone who is not particularly easy to reach.
This is KC3SGV.
All those numbers and letters are ham radio call signs. NA1SS is the International Space Station.
3, 2, 1.
The first amateur contact in space happened 40 years ago with the Space Shuttle Columbia.
Hello, W1JXN. This is W5LFL. You're our first contact from orbit.
What advice would you
Since
give to
then,
students
a group called ARRL, Amateur Radio on the International Space Station, has organized radio calls between astronauts and some million students worldwide.
What do you do for fun on the space station? Over.
Most of the time, adults do the setup. But at Harbor Creek High School, it's all about the students.
Which license do you have? I have the Technician General and Amateur Extra licenses.
All of these students are licensed amateur radio operators, studying for a series of federal communications exams and passing to use radio waves to reach out to the world.
My last contact was in Austria.
But now, literally aiming higher. This space station call, years in the making, endless hours of after school and weekends of preparation.
This is the one you use to contact the space station?
Did you guys put all of this stuff together?
We've set everything up, from the antennas to the radios, to the power supplies, antenna controllers. We've set this whole event up ourselves.
The students have a 10-minute window to make contact, then question astronaut Andreas Mogensen.
They can be very
Assistant Principal Drew Mortensen heads the Advanced Technology Club at the school. After attending an amateur radio seminar, he thought, I'll bet our students can do this.
You have to hit a target.
Right, exactly. You're hitting something that's 254 miles away, traveling at 17,000 miles per hour, and you're hoping that everything goes correctly.
What could possibly go wrong?
No, right, exactly, no.
The gym looks like it's set up for homecoming. Signs, balloons. You can feel the buzz. As classes file in to watch, the technology kids are psyched, anxious.
Today, the students of Harbor Creek are on a journey to boldly go where few hams have gone before.
The time has come. 15-year-old Giles Veit begins the call.
NA1SS, NA1SS, this is KC3SGV.
The gym full of students wondering, will this work?
NA1SS, NA1SS, this is KC3SGV. NA1SS.
Giles calls again.
KC3SGV.
And again.
NA1SS, NA1SS, this is KC3SGV.
Finally.
Kilo Charlie 3 Sierra, Golf Victor is
Okay, Commander Mogensen, we have you a 5-7, a pretty good signal. So, are you ready for some questions?
I am ready for questions. Go ahead.
Lots of the club members get to take turns.
Living in space
A payoff for the hours of work they've invested.
Why do you think that space exploration is important? Over.
exploration is important in many ways. One, because it's about knowledge. It's about expanding our horizons, both physically but also mentally.
In 10 short minutes, the space station is out of range.
For the students!
What was it like hitting that button over and over?
As soon as we heard Commander Mogeson respond, that was such a relief, really.
I'm just looking at the smile on your face.
Yeah.
What else are you feeling right now?
Lightheaded.
Mr. Mortensen is brimming with pride.
Yeah. How big of an emotional investment was this for you?
I love my kids. I do. I absolutely love them. And so, for them to get to have that experience is huge.
Why you become a teacher?
Yep, absolutely.
I clapped again.
Yes, there was some tears that day too, right?
So just think about, just by getting it out to local media, the Today Show picked it up. Sierra, you know off the top of your head viewership of the Today Show, roughly? Do you know roughly what the viewership of the Today Show is? Ballpark number? Millions. Okay, so millions of people, because kids are doing cool stuff, millions of people were exposed to amateur radio. It's great for kids, you know, they're like schools. The number of phone calls we got in our office after that was like, I want to do that. Huge. It's like, okay, well, come this summer. That's part of the reason I ran out of space for Teachers Institute. Because it was on the Today Show. Okay, it's a good problem to have. So do that. Now, I show this picture in every single presentation that I do. It's a grainy old picture of 4 kids, 3 with a new license, 1 who didn't pass but wanted to be in the picture anyway. Unfortunately, it's fuzzy, so you don't see he's crying. My point is not to brag that, you know, in 2006 it's that I moved away the next year. And if we don't stick around to actually welcome these kids into our clubs and everything, they disappear. Every single one of those kids 10 years later, what do you think happened? Every one of them let their license expire. Because, you know, there was nobody there to engage them. So this is the part where you as a club need to go and be in contact with the schools to let those kids come to your club meeting. That might mean you need to make your club a little bit different. That's okay. Okay, I promise you, it is perfectly fine to send the treasurer's report by email. It's okay. Nobody really listens to it anyway. As long as you have enough money to buy the food for field day, that's all that really matters. So, you know, I'm 52 years old and I don't want to sit through 20 minutes of reports. Well, we've got a young lady here. How long are you willing to listen to something before you take the phone out and try to swipe without your teacher seeing? I know I put you on a spot because you have parental units nearby. But I can assure you it's not very long. Okay, if the kids show up once and they're like, my gosh, that was boring, I'll give it another try. And they show up the next time and guess what they listen to again? The treasurer's report. And the treasurer stands up and says, we had no dues or anything paid, no expenses. So the balance is exactly the same number it was last month. It doesn't take long for, you know, kids to be like, appreciate it, Discord. Okay, just saying. So you might need to kind of, you know, energize things a little bit. So engage the kids so they do not disappear on us, because we already know that a huge number of technicians expire after 10 years. We already know that a huge number of the people that get their technician license are inactive after a year. And it's because of stuff like that, because we don't make them feel welcome. Okay. Well, we do have resources. Some people were asking about stuff that we have to help you get into schools. Email me. I've got a couple of these at the table in the booth. But if you want, like, you know, a collection of them to take to schools, email us. We'll send them out to you, no charge. If you remember, we just send them out. Brochures for Teachers Institute. Again, like I said, as you walk around, if you see people with those Maxim little tags, thank them. But I'm also going to go ahead and tell you, not everybody who helps us get there is a Maxim member. I think that number's like $10,000 or something like that. Every little bit helps. I email and personally thank every single person who donates to the education fund. They give me $5. They didn't have to give me $5. That's worth a few minutes for me to email and say, hey, thank you. Okay? Because a bunch of $5 is add up. So, as we try to grow this, just remember that we have clubs that are sponsoring teacher seats. We have clubs that are giving money to help get into schools. So if you're interested and able to help us financially do that, I'm not going to say no. I can hook you up with Kevin next door to my booth. And, don't think, well, $20. Because I kid you not, a whole bunch of $20 donations adds up. So it costs me about $40,000 a week for every week I do this. So every bit helps. So any questions about anything? Homeschoolers are very much welcome. In fact, bald guy number 3 in my booth, Wayne, I specifically recruited him because he teaches in a homeschool co-op. Because that is a group of kids and group of educators that they have more freedom than pretty much everybody on what they're teaching. So, if it's actually a homeschool co-op that you're part of, we can absolutely get a teacher in. So I can't justify the expense if it's like, you are the homeschool teacher for your 2 kids. I have to have, some ROI on that. But yeah, if you're in a co-op and you're teaching a significant number, then yeah, we can talk. I'll give you my card afterwards. We can talk. Anything else?
So I would imagine that attraction is not just something that happens once, but it's several steps to get there. How do we tie this into field day, since you brought that up? I have 2 clubs that are putting together a 5A, as they have done for years. I have the Aries director bringing in the brand new comms man. How do I get the teachers to that event? Because if I go to the school and talk to them, I'm going to be boring to them as well. But if they come and they see it live, they might be interested and say, oh.
Okay, so the question was, how do we get teachers and kids to come to field day? That's a little harder because it's in the summer for most schools. So you start early, find whoever that technology teacher is, and then just to be honest, give them flyers and make sure you point out that there is food. I'm serious. That's how, when I was first starting my club in middle school, Little Caesars Pizza. Cost me $5 a piece. I bought 2 or 3 of those things. Food? Shaggy? There they were. And they showed up. And then guess what? I was able to stop buying the pizza, except for like every now and then I'd buy some. And they were still coming. So the same thing, you go to them and say, hey, maybe I can get you some of this stuff. Also remember, when you're talking to them, talk about scholarships, because last year we gave away, the ARRL Foundation gave away about $1 million in scholarships. Yeah, she was like, ooh, $1 million. It's a lot of cash. Okay, scholarships up to $25,000 a year that kids can get. They have to be a licensed ham. They have to be active doing something. And I've got some strategies to help you look more appealing for those scholarship people too. So principals have a really hard time saying no to scholarship money. And one of the printouts that I send you is I went through and I put every name of every kid who got a scholarship, and I highlighted the dollar amount, and I put where they were from. So that when you give it to a teacher, it works really well in states that like only have one teacher or maybe no teachers or kids who got scholarships. You can say, wow, look, nobody in Connecticut got a scholarship. You want to be first? Principals are just that way. Principals want their school and themselves to look good, and obviously do what's good for the kid. Scholarship money kind of checks all the boxes, so make sure you bring that up too. Any other questions? Great haircut, by the way. Yeah. So that it can be tricky. If you find the teacher who's teaching STEM, sometimes that's that person. Sometimes that's the person who their last class got phased out and they got told, you're teaching STEM, and they're a little bitter about it. Honestly, it's a conversation. You'll get a feel for that person. If it's not, science teachers are our friends. Physics teachers are our friends. We love physics, don't we? Yeah. Ron's back like, yeah, we like physics people. it's a conversation piece. I first started doing it in my class when I was teaching English. And, you know, it works. Kids had to read a certain number of AR books every 9 weeks to get a goal. I told them I would count their goal complete if they passed the technician exam for this semester. That's a pretty good bit of reading, and it's a little harder than reading Junie B. Jones. So. Pretty much all. The question was how many of those kids in the Erie program were not licensed when it started. So pretty much all of them. So when Drew, he had a few of them that were licensed just as he was starting to get interested. When he came through TI, it was like, boom. So I don't know the exact number. I know that most of those kids were licensed after he came through TI and in preparation for this. The balloon launch did wonders for his program. When he launched a balloon and the kids are like, I want to launch one with my call sign. Well, you better get one then, huh? So, any other questions? Middle school is my sweet spot. And there's a couple of reasons. Some elementary school can work. High school, a lot of times they've already found those clubs and other things that they're into, so you kind of need to light that fire first. Middle school is a great spot to do it because they haven't really gotten invested into any programs yet. And then, you know, high school you can, but really if you're looking, especially playing the long game of scholarship options and stuff, you want them to have been licensed and active long enough that there's enough there that they know, so that when they have that Zoom call and they're like, hey, you know, we're looking at giving you a $25,000 scholarship, we'd like to ask you a few questions. You know, my daughter got one, and it was one question. Tell me what you like about amateur radio. And they finally shut her up 17 minutes later. And, you know, she was like, well, POTA's her thing, Parks on the Air. She's like, well, my thing is POTA because my daddy does POTA. My mama finally started doing it because daddy and I do it. And, I mean, she just talked about all the people she got to talk to, and they're like, okay. No. So, but she wouldn't have been able to say that when she first got licensed because she hadn't been licensed long enough to find her love. So, anything else? Okay, like I said, I will be over here in the booth the rest of the day. Tomorrow is kind of I'll be there for the morning part, and then we have our youth rally. Youth, if you are not signed up for our youth rally, please come over, get signed up, get a T-shirt. We've got some cool stuff happening with that, like, you know, parachute mobile jump, some other kind of nerdy fun stuff that we're going to do. So do that. And there's an awesome escape room over there for the young people to try to figure out. So if you don't have any other questions, thank you. Thank you for your membership. Thank you for your support, and thank you for braving the weather for Hamvention today. 7-3.